Greetings, greetings. Come on in. All is a blessing. All is a blessing. Divine, all blessed, peace and love, joy and prosperity, divine unity and community. Come on in, come on in. All is a blessing. Greetings, greetings and salutations.
Come back home to Africa. She's calling your name to win. Come back home to Africa.
The fatty cat and golden rain are waiting for you once again. Coming back to you. I'm longing for my family. Coming back to you. Out of bondage and now I am free. Da, 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 da.
Come back home to Africa. She's calling your name to win. Come back home to Africa. The fatted cat
And golden rain are waiting for you once again.
I'm longing for my family.
Coming back to you. Out of bondage and now I am free. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da da da. Da da da. Who's got better introduction music than this? Who has better theme music than this? Yes. Thank you, Diane, Cameron, Elam. Diane, Cameron, Elam. Diane, Cameron, Elam. Thank you. We're grateful for your musical contributions. Greetings, greetings. Come on in, come on in. Welcome, welcome. Welcome. All is a blessing. All is a blessing. The beloved queen is in the house.
Come back home to Africa. Come back home. Come back home to Africa. Come back home.
Greetings, 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 divine, all blessed, peace and love, joy and prosperity. Welcome again to another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. Eshu Aleguana Kosi Were Awo Onlo Uto Ni Ibo Ada Afanbo Osi Obatala Mi Ita Ni Ibo Onilio Aban Eshu. Eshu is a respected elder who flogs, confronts, and uncovers fools. The one versed in mysteries uses truth to own you. He causes scatter to feed poverty. Obatala shakes rascals to have sacrifice. The owner of warnings is the one who is Eshu. Aboru, Aboye, Awoshishe, Ashe, Mea Ebo Richaru, May our ever be accepted. May our ever allow what we desire to come to pass. And so we say, Ashe. Again, divine, all blessed, peace and love, joy and prosperity, elevation, revelations, and manifestation. You are now sitting live with the Divine Prince. And also the Queen Mother, the beloved, is also sitting in with us on another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. I am Pan-African spiritualist, practitioner, author, advisor, Elagoon, Oloye, Hoodoo, Obeah, Bokur, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African Hoodoo world spiritualist perspective, understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing if you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test, one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. This is my constant prayer, my mantra, my affirmation, my reverberation, and it is my ever-living reality. It is indeed crucial to the very foundation of my understanding, my teaching, my walk, my work, my demonstration along this divine, all blessed life path and journey. It is how I, the Divine Prince, make sense out of all that we're challenged with here in our daily existence on Mother, Father, Earth. And it is my personal place of power, the place from where I began, the place from where I realize and crystallize all my endeavors, understanding that I and I alone create and co-create my divine, all blessed reality, and I create and co-create my divine, all blessed destiny. I am indeed grateful for you all being present again at high noon U.S. Central Standard Time for another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. Both myself and the Queen Mother, Naima Shikamana, we welcome you humbly, respectfully, with open arms to share with us now in this virtual space. But in time, we also invite you to come and visit us physically in this space. Please stop showing up at the door unannounced, without appointments, without wearing a mask. You should at least be wearing a mask. If you respect me and you respect the house and you respect yourself, if you're going to show up unannounced, at least have a mask on, brethren, sisterin. We're in the season of coronavirus, COVID-19. If you haven't heard, it's been around since about February, and it's not going anywhere. Not anytime soon, and certainly not right now. And so we understand in this audience, because I've said it many times, I'm gonna say it again, this virus don't like black people. This virus don't like black people. So we can't be the people to act like it's not real, to act like it's not present, to act like it's not something that we should be concerned about, that we should protect our children from. Many of you right now are in that quandary. I understand the Queen Mother has grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And so we understand the quandary of sending your children back right now in the season of Corona. We get it. We get it. And our hearts go out to you, indeed. Our support goes out to you. And any way that House of Divine Prince, and of course Hoodoo Central LLC, legal Hoodoo Central LLC, can assist and organize a way to assist these parents in this season moving forward, we would certainly like to be a part of that. The dissemination, that's not the word I'm looking for. The sharing of information, the sharing of resources, if you will. All those things will be important as we move into August, September. People are returning to work, but also now in the position of either having to homeschool or make other arrangements for their children, or to send them back out into this season of COVID-19. For us, it's a big thing. We're in the house, we're at least maybe a little bit more than 6 feet away. Of course, speaking in a completely different direction. The air conditioning is blowing that way. You know, and I have 17-foot ceilings, so we're making all possible allowances here to ensure the safety of both client, godchildren, initiates, and of course staff and community members who support Hoodoo Central House of Divine Friends. We've expanded. We have a bigger space, so we have a little bit more room to work with and sort of navigate. And of course, we're now planning, hopefully, a gathering, an event for later this year when we can physically be at least outdoors and have some sort of ceremony to commemorate my initiates and my godchildren who are studying and graduating, but also the reunion of community, the reunion of the ancestors. For you say namaste, I say I acknowledge and greet the ancestors that walk with you, that carry you, that support you. I acknowledge and greet those ancestors that stand right now in this moment at your back, at your shoulder, at your head. And indeed, I acknowledge my own ancestors. It is something that we do. It is something that's critical to. It is something that's foundational to ATR practice, traditional African religious systems. And so we all in this space, this shared sacred space, acknowledge ancestors in some form or some fashion. We also give great acknowledgement to the powers of the day. Indeed, Ose Fa, Ose Ifa, and the powers of divination and how God speaks to us. We also acknowledge Osun, not Oshun, Osun, who governs the head, which is a part of the complexity of how we navigate consciousness in HCR traditions. We acknowledge Ajay, and some of you call Ajay luck. But today is the ritual day that we acknowledge Ajay. And of course, we acknowledge Oshun, and we acknowledge Olokun, and we acknowledge Yemaya, Ibayi, Mojuba in the ritual cycle of things. But as I've typed in the chat, Olukoso and Yata Oya are dancing about all above our heads. So please forgive any buffering, any technical glitches that we might experience today, just as a response to the thunder and lightning and wind that's sort of moving through the city right now. I greet each and every one of you individually, collectively. Jennifer Anderson, greetings, beloved. Keona D. Carter, our moderator, our professional moderator here in the chat. Ibai Orisha, Mojuba Orisha, thank you so much, Orisha, for showing up again and showing out always. Greetings, Justice. Greetings, greetings, beloved. Divine, all blessed greetings and salutations. I am Symmetry. Greetings, beloved. Greetings. DP, welcome, DP. I used to know what that meant. I can't remember what those initials are for. Help me out with that. But thank you so much for coming through. D'Amico, greetings, beloved. Asheo. Yes, Ori is central to how we operate in these traditions. I pick sometimes, I throw shade sometimes at the Orisha romance and how little you all really know and really understand about Orisha. And you've absorbed quick books. And I don't want to start throwing out authors because some of these authors I love. Some of these authors I support. Some of these authors support New Orleans. But if you're looking at a 7-day calendar of Orisha, that's not authentic to Orisha. That's authentic to botanicas and spiritual supply stores. But that's not authentic to how you act within Yoruba Ifa or Fan or Ewe Fa Voodoo. We have a 4-day ritual cycle. The second thing is Oshun can help you. Shango can help you. Ogu can help you. Oba can help you if Ori don't allow it. If your head doesn't allow it. So in the scheme of Orisha romance, I would be romantically involved with Ori. I would be so enchanted with Ori in my head and how to correct my head and bring balance to my head and bring balance to consciousness and to empower my head so that the pantheon of spirits and powers, the seven African powers, can then stand up and truly and authentically represent and fight for you. So thank you for that, D'Amico, for that shared understanding of the power and the consciousness involved in the awareness of Ori and how that works um, in our lives and in this tradition. Greetings, Chef Bougie. Greetings, beloved. We can't wait to get together so we can throw something on the grill, so we can have a little cookout. You know, we can be 14 feet apart, but we can still be on the block. We can have a block party between here and the motorcycle club, between here and Miss Gloria's garden. We could have a wonderful block party and be socially distanced. So welcome, Chef Bougie. Welcome, beloved. One Self Duan. Greetings, beloved. Thank you for being a part of this live and active show. I invite you now, if you will. My phone lines are open at 845-277-9143. 845-277-9143. You can also join me now. Someone's at my door. You can also join me now live on StreamYard. Please forgive me. Ah, I had a UPS driver who likes to deliver and then he runs like his ass is on fire. He did at least knock today, and I'm grateful for that. But it's raining. So the last thing I want is my package sitting on the stoop in the rain. So please forgive that brief interruption. Blessed Wednesday, One Self Duan. Blessed Wednesday. All is a blessing. Thank you, Keon D. Carter, for popping in all of our information. D.D. Harmon, greetings, beloved. I don't think I've seen you in a little bit. Greetings, greetings, welcome. We want to continue our conversation, if you will, if you want to, about entanglements and the ties that bind. We're quick to think about magic and root work and binding and entanglements. We're quick to think about soulmates and love relationships and marriage, as we discussed on yesterday in terms of entanglements. But we don't think about the entanglements that affect us at the ground level, in your workspace, in your peer groups, how you interact in groups and certain settings have everything to do with entanglements. First, as we demonstrated on yesterday, that within your ancestors. Your ancestors are your first line of defense. Your ancestors stand up first before all things, before anything, your ancestors. So of course there's that generational pattern. And I'm slowing up a little bit on saying the generational curse. We reinforce the generational curse, but there are very positive, helpful skills and knowledge and energy that's also passed down through our lineage, through our bloodlines. And particularly those of us with abusive backgrounds, traumatic backgrounds, crazy backgrounds. We're quick to throw away the baby with the bathwater. We're quick to want to forget, to want to deny, to not want to hear, to not want to connect with. And in so doing, sometimes we also throw away the very good gems that we need and that I discovered, and many of you discover when you start doing your ancestral work and divination. We then start wanting to answer questions. We then start wanting to understand certain things about ourselves and our families and our bloodlines and our blood lineages. And so we have to look at entanglements. And so in your present reality, mom, dad, sister, brother, husband, wife, spouse, co-wife, co-spouse. But think of it in a more reincarnative understanding. So 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, in another lifetime, in another life cycle, everyone would be in a different position. The mom might have been the son, dad might have been the wife, etc. And so we come back. What is the purpose of reincarnation? To perfect, to correct, to bring balance to. So when we think about souls and soulmates, in the West, we like to throw around soulmates and Valentine's Day and boxes of chocolate and little naked cherubs with bow and arrows. But soulmates are about doing soul level work. Soul level work. And soul level work is not always negative, but it's not always positive either. It is certainly complex. It is certainly complicated. It is enough to cause you to be like magnetic energy, drawn back, pulled back to one another. Some would say bound, tied to one another, not just in the course of your present lifetime, but then into the next, or the one that came before. And that's why it's best to fix, repair, change, clean up as best you can right now in this present moment. Like Tina Marie and Deja Vu, thank God I'm not coming back here anymore. I choose not to come back here anymore. I choose not to channel through earth-based reality again and again. And I'm ready for something higher. I'm ready for something greater. And many of you are too. And so the shortcut to that is to do the work. Do the work in the present. Also want to heal the work in my family because I don't want to deal with this again. I don't want to deal with it in the next life. I don't want the animus that I have with my father to cause us to have to come back here and confront this again in another life cycle. So we do the work. D'Amico is asking about clearing unclean evil spirits. What can I share that she can study to bring love and liberation to imprisoned souls? That's a great question. It's one that I'm willing to go into now. It's a little bit complex. It is first and foremost advanced level work. Everyone here is not ready to clear spirits. Everyone here is not ready to do cleansings. Everyone here is not ready to be trying to smudge people. I don't let anybody smudge me. I don't let everybody wave sage around me. I don't let anybody lay hands on me. So we're at varying degrees, D'Amico, of maturity in our spirit walk. We are at varying degrees in our personal walk in which we can address clearing and cleaning unclean spirits. Now, moving on from that, yes, you can burn frankincense and myrrh. You can sage a space. But if you don't get to the root of why a spirit is attached or is lingering or hanging around, then you're only going to have to repeat that process. It's only going to be something that you're going to have to continue to confront. And if you don't confront, then it can indeed become, as Jennifer Anderson is now asking about, something that is generational, something that you can't fix or you can't repair or you deny, and then it travels on to your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews, your neighbors. In thinking about attachments, we don't consider our friends, the people you grew up with, the people you feel closest to, the people that we develop intimate ties and relationships with by way of our life journey. We meet at work, we meet at college, we met on vacation, we met at the mall. And often within that brief moment of judgment, just like when you open the door, and it's the stranger standing out there, you have all of a second or two to comprehend Is this good for me or is this bad? Is this dangerous? Is this person here to bring something of benefit, or is this person here to harm me? And it's something that we do instinctively within a matter of moments. And so we meet people on our journey who feel like we've known them forever. We meet people on our journey who feel like family. We meet people on our journey who we connect to. That's how Sister Tony and I connected through work almost 30 years ago, and we clicked the very first day. In fact, she clicked off just saying my name before she met me in person. So entanglements traverse more than just what's negative, traverse more than just soulmates in the way many of you think about soulmates. Many of you think about soulmates in a love, sex, marriage, intimacy, emotional kind of thing. And I'm here to break the news to you. That's not what soulmates are about. It never has been. Soulmates are about doing soulmate level work. Domiko, are we talking about evil spirits that are attached to your family? Or are we talking about evil spirits that are something we pick up along the way? In the conversation of entanglements, we can absolutely look at that further. And listen, I invite you all to join me now on screen. You all did very good yesterday. I was proud of my audience. Many of you were ready to go and you had your webcams and you popped in. And we're going to do the same thing today. I invite you to share your questions, your comments, or requests. I appreciate the chat, but on screen is so much more interesting and so much more personal in this day of social separation. Jennifer Anderson, how do I begin work with my ancestors to break or heal generational curses? Things that have shown themselves to be a cycle in my family. Okay, there's two ways I can answer that. And I'm going to say the most obvious first. I provide ancestral work and divination, not just for people who are initiating, though for those who are initiating, ancestral work and divination is a requirement in my house. But I also have people who are not ready for voodoo, who are not ready to commit to ATR, who are not ready for initiatory processes, but want connection to their ancestors, want to do healing work for their ancestors. And we still provide ancestral divination and ancestral work. And in the best case scenario, ancestral divination and ancestral work should be done together. And I'm going to explain why. Ancestral divination, we're going to throw divination. We're going to communicate with Egun. We're going to communicate with Egungun. We're going to communicate with your ancestors, your higher ancestors, your more evolved ancestors, but also your what I call relatives. Recently dead, recently, the last year, the last 5 years, the last, etc. And then we first learn how to placate them, acknowledge them, invite them into our space, feed them, make them happy. But we also learn how to not provoke what Haitian voodoo called Gede, what Louisiana voodoo calls Gede. Gede is a bit of a trickster, and Gede represents the unhealed stuff in your family. We don't invite Gede to the ceremony. Gede shows up uninvited. Gede comes in and possess somebody and take over and implants themselves into the ceremony. And then we feed, placate, acknowledge, and send them on their way with the idea of healing, moving on into the next space, which is where which is where Jennifer was sort of asking in terms of how do we work with ancestors to break and heal generational curses. And you first have to heal them through yourself, Jennifer. First through yourself. And some of us can't communicate with family. Some of us can't get it through the family. Some of us can't get on the same page, for whatever reason. And so we have to do it first through ourselves, through your own blood, in your own space. And I can't speak to the power and the effectiveness of doing ancestral work. I just can't. Just the thought of it is overwhelming. When I think of myself, when I think of the Queen Mother, when I think of other stories of people who've been involved with us in the house, and the responses that we've gotten from the spirit realm as it relates to ancestors. So be willing to do the work first for yourself. First for yourself, first in yourself. I might even say first, Jennifer, by yourself. And then as that grows, as that develops, as you gain a better understanding of who you are, where you come from. In our house, we also look at lineage. Lineage is just as critical here as it is in Lukumi. Lineage is essential to understanding who your ancestors are exactly. Many of you are caught up in Orisha romance and you're not Yoruba, not by the long shot. You might be Akan, you might be Igbo, you might be Ga, but we acknowledge Akan because, I'm sorry, we acknowledge Orisha because that's what we know. And it's most present often in a Bing search, in a Google search. But Jennifer, you could always do this work and do your ancestry work and marry those two things together, which is what we do here in our house when I talk about ancestral work and divination. And then begin to first heal self, and then you can extend outward. As D'Amico, in her lovely way, introduced early on in the conversation, without Ori, you can't do anything. And so how you separate ancestors from Ori boggles my mind. If the ancestors stand up in your blood and Ori stands up in your hair, those two things have to be united. Those two things have to work together. And what fulfills that triangle is how we then operate in the realm of Orisha. And Orisha comes through the spirit of divination. So without divination, we can't even start to even discuss Orisha. As D'Amico and I know, we don't even communicate with Orisha in the same way that we do with Ori. So do the work, Jennifer Anderson. First is the creation of sacred space. First is the invitation. It's the invite for intervention. It's the invite for assistance from those who came before. And then they will help you develop a better understanding. I said in the show yesterday that, you know, if there's a problem with someone living like a parent, I go to the ancestors. If you can't get it through to them, if you can't discuss it with them, if they aren't cooperating, I handle it with the ancestors. And in today's technology, it's amazing what can be brought to you, what can be shown to you, what you can discover now with just a little bit of work and understanding words, how to use words. We have an ongoing sort of challenge here in the chat for people to do study on Odu, to do study on particular words that we use in these traditions, to see how much information is really available to them. And through that, is Carmen here? And through that, is Carmen in the chat? Oh, okay.
I put this on her page.
Oh, okay, because her name now is in the chat.
She might be on there.
No, it's you. It's you.
Oh, it's me.
Yeah, it's you. I didn't realize that happened though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you, but it's showing up here in the chat. So yeah, be careful what you what you type in. Yes, indeed. But that is how, Jennifer Anderson, how you best begin to break and heal those generational curses. And of course, I'm not going to give away my process entirely here live on camera, though there are many people in the room who are a part of that process right now, who are actively going through my ancestral work and divination. But, you know, it goes all the way back to ancient Egypt. It goes all the way back to old world indigenous magic. Understanding in the old world, they didn't have religion. They didn't say religion. They didn't have words for religion. In Egypt, particularly, they say Heka, Heka. So this concept goes way back that which you loose on earth is loosed in heaven, and that which is loosed in heaven is loosed on earth. It's also a biblical scripture that many of you are very well, able to recognize. So there is a universal law about what we do physically, how we pray, how we ritualize, how we acknowledge spirit, how we create our shrines and our sacred spaces that we expect to translate into active manifestation in our lives and here on the ground. Kiona, I don't know if you want me to open you up on screen or if you want me to open you up on Blog Talk Radio. I'm just glad you're here and you're in both places.
Greetings.
So, greetings, beloved. Welcome. Come on in. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I am so interested in today's show because I keep hearing that we picked our lives. We picked our lives. And it's like, I really have troubles with that. I really do. Because I did not pick, I don't feel like I picked being alone, being ostracized, being judged. I could walk in a room, people judge me, not being accepted. Like, why would I choose that? Why not be rich and, help humanity and then when it's time to expire, get up out of here and move on to the next. Like I didn't choose. I really want to talk about this, so I'm going to shut up and let you take back over your program because I really want to hear more.
Well, I need your active participation in that. And
Okay.
again, as I said, and see, for you and I, since you want to do this live on air, for you and I, the challenge is, beloved, are you hearing me? Just hear me. Are you hearing me? Because again, we're doing it live on air, and your questions be deep, your questions be poignant, and so I can't hold it back. I can't put no covers on it, and so I have to repeat first what I said yesterday. It's everything in your conversation. It's everything in your words. You are convinced, rightly or wrongly so, you are convinced of this negative experience that you keep projecting with your mouth. And you reinforce it with what you say. You reinforce it with how you describe it. And then when I get empathic and all fuzzy and stuff, and I walk into a room and being judged, that first has to happen at the level of Ori. And unless you're an stout telepath, an astute empath, a master psychic of all world renown, that phraseology suggests that you are picking and choosing what's floating in the air before you have real demonstration, before you have real confirmation, before I get up out of my chair and say, "Oh, who are you? I haven't heard that from you." I'm hearing what you might perceive from the inside as being judged. And let's say you are being judged. Boo, I'm judged. I'm judged every day. I'm judged the minute I walk out my house. I'm judged the minute you find me online and see my picture. I'm judged here on video. I'm judged. I'm judged for not being born in New Orleans. I'm judged. So we're all judged for something. I'm judged for being black. I'm judged for being gay. I'm judged for being too African. I'm judged for being too voodoo. So you got to choose first how you see yourself. I'm hearing self-judgment. How are you judging yourself? Because see, if you see yourself as the queen, as the goddess, your telepathy, what you're hearing has to change. And listen, I'm there with you, boo. That's my battle. Me and the queen talked about that today. I have to reaffirm that every day, who I am, every day.
I had a guy not too long ago. I said something to him, He didn't like my response, and he called me a proud bitch. Like I wanted to smack his face. Like you don't know me
Smack his face for what?
What?
because it's
He
like
gave
don't.
you he gave you a compliment. Smack his face for what? He gave you a
Because
compliment.
I didn't like it.
Exactly. Hold on. Sit in that. Because you didn't like it. Has everything to do with what I'm talking about. It's your inner conversation. It's what you're hearing. See, me and the Queen heard a compliment. What better compliment than to tell a black woman she's proud in a world that don't allow black women to be proud? It's a compliment. But if you don't see it as an asset, then it's not a compliment. If you don't embrace it as a gift, then you interpret it as an insult. I think about my mother who like pop in and out of the show every now and then. My mom was born in 1942. To call somebody black in 1942 would have been a fight. That would have been worse. See, right now, y'all can't phantom that. We black and we proud. No, in 1942, if you call my mother as black as she is, as pretty dark as she is, if you called her black, it would have been a fight. The fight would have been on. That would have been worse than being called the C word, the B word, the N word, to be called black in 1950. So that changed in 1960 and 1970. James Brown came along and said, I'm black and I'm proud. And we embraced. Now, today, if I call you black, hey, black sister, hey, black queen, hey, black brother, ain't no insult in that. But you heard proud and you took that as a negative?
I think the insult was he said
Speak
proud
up.
bitch.
Speak up.
I think the insult to her was that he said proud bitch.
Okay, I get that. I talk about that a lot in my readings. I say diva. I say diva. But the ignorant person or the Western mindset might say bitch. But is that an insult? Depending on your mindset, depending on where you are in your journey, beloved, that's what I'm trying to say. Also, I'm hearing, not just today, but just, in our ongoing conversation, I would much rather we work this out in private, but if you want to do it in public, okay. Um, I'm hearing how you apply what you hear. And before I get too far along for you and the listeners, I want to be clear. Ain't no judgment here of Kiona. This has been my experience. I've been there. Queen Mother knows it. If you had caught me 30 years ago, that would have been me. I don't have no friends. I don't go anywhere. Nobody likes me. I'm judged everywhere we go. That was my conversation 30 years ago. That was my reality. And that was the only understanding I had in that moment of my reality. Once I gained what we call consciousness, once my Ori, thank you, D'Amico, had been adjusted, had been looked at, my whole world changed. My whole way of viewing the world changed. My whole way of identifying with the world changed. Now, Kiona, it didn't change the fact that people still judge. It don't change the fact that people still gonna look. People gonna look, gonna judge, gonna have something to say, no matter how thin you are, no matter how big you are, no matter how perfect you are, no matter how cute you are in the face, no matter how on point your fashions are, people are always gonna find a reason to judge. And I had a therapist tell me back in 1987, you got a fear of success. I said, what? She said, you have a fear of success because we associate change. We associate wealth. We associate fame and celebrity often with a negative repercussion, with people who are fraudulent, with people who have secret lies, with people who do dirty things. And I'm going to bring it together. I'm going to tell you why I'm saying this to you right now, Kim. So that fear of success blocked me from seeing the very good, the very blessings, the very skills that I already had in 1986. I was writing plays in 1986. I was wearing fashion in 1986, but I was a homeless kid on the street. And so part of my brain knew I was divine. Part of my brain knew I was the prince. Part of my brain knew I was operating on voodoo. If you met me in 1986, that was my first conversation. Voodoo. What do you know about voodoo? And that has not changed. It has just evolved. Hold on with me, Kiana. Just listen to me. The fear of success thing. So as I grew, it's meaning as I accepted me, and I realized that, oh, wait a minute, I can crochet dreadlock crowns and dreadlock hats. People actually buy that. You know, I learned that, oh, I can dip incense and make my own body oils, and people will actually buy that. And I can put my own flavor, my own character, my own, and that built up my sense of self-esteem. Vending also put me in a position to be in the face of people every day. Big, small, black, white, whatever, of varying degrees of culture and religion and belief and understanding. And I learned to accept that my Black African value was just as valuable as your pretty brown and your pretty black and your pretty tan. So as I moved on to the next level, you then develop a new set of people who judge you for your advancements. You're now doing better than me. You're now not stuck where I'm stuck. Yeah, the haters. You now don't share the same complaints and pet peeves that I have. You know, and that's why we're talking about entanglements. Because once that's on you, once that's a party to who you are, Kiona, I know it's hard to hear. You draw that to you. You invite that to you. And when the people who are not that stuck, we don't recognize them. We don't even see them. You know, they got to bang on the windows and the doors. We don't even see them. But for what's not right for us, many of us, look at your love and relationship house. Some of us have a skill of picking what ain't right. And when you're honest about it, I'm honest about it.
You
I
know,
am not a good, listen,
not
I
a
am not
word
a
of
good
lie.
judge.
Not a
I am
word of lie.
I am not a good judge of character when it comes to dating. The difference is I'm aware of it. So when I say, oh, that looks interesting, I pull back. When I say, oh no, that I pull back. And I learn to look for other signs. So I want to teach you how to look for other signs. Now listen, if there's confirmation, if somebody call you out of your name, say something, okay, that's different. And then we pounce on that. Then we attack that. But I'm talking about the perceived judgment that goes on in your head,
Yeah.
that triggers off in your body. That's what I want to attack. So that you get up every day feeling like the goddess, feeling like the queen, walking into the world. I say it again, 30 years ago, I couldn't do this. I couldn't have y'all looking at me and me looking at you and trying to be who I am and feel settled in it. I had to grow into this. I had to grow into this. Sister Wife has known me longer than anybody in this city. So she's seen me grow. And she ain't one to bite her tongue. She might have a mask on, but she ain't one to bite her tongue. So if I was telling a lie, she would have been interrupted the show.
You done had it for the day.
Okay, and today we still go back and forth, Kiona, about me having that momentary relapse into the old me, and her having to slap me in the face and remind me of who I am right now. Right now. And I like to call it a distraction. Distract yourself on who you are becoming in the future. And many of you listening to me, you got to pick your friends just like that. Listen, you got to stop picking peers that match where you are. because you're not going to get anywhere. They're not going to let you move any further than they move. They're not going to understand the move you make, Kiana. A lot of people don't understand self-employment, even in 2020. A lot of people think you and I are sitting home twiddling our thumbs and playing Candy Crush all day.
No.
They don't understand the amount of hours and time it takes to work at home, the amount of office work you're doing on the computer, the amount of business detail that it takes to successfully work at home. And once you're successful at working at home, then you have another shift in your peer group of people who don't understand that or who feel some kind of way about that. And you should have downtime, and you should have social time, and you be able to communicate, and you should be able to talk when I'm ready to talk. And sometimes, you know, business is not 40 hours a week for me.
No.
Business is 75 hours a week for me.
No.
Yes.
You know, and the same thing for
Yeah.
Kiona. I kind of don't want to tell her business, but I know what Kiona do. Kiona is a dispatcher, and I know what it takes. Danica, beloved, oh my goodness, she killing me with those colors. What's
Hi.
with that red and that black and that yellow behind your head? I just like those colors.
It's
Yes,
It's
that's
Guyana's
beautiful.
colors. Guyana flag.
Yeah,
How you doing today?
how you doing?
I'm blessed. I cannot complain.
All is a blessing. Oh,
Welcome.
Thank you
I'm
so
gonna come
much.
back,
I
Kiona.
appreciate it.
What you got to say to me?
I just wanted to listen in. I do wanna. I guess I want to get more involved in voodoo. But I need to understand. Like I want to understand what's the first step I need to take in order to proceed with getting to know the Orishas and Ifa, and how do I, like the different steps that I need to take. And I don't want to skip anything. I don't want to shortcut myself. But I do, it is very interesting, and I do definitely want to go a lot deeper into myself to dig up and to resurrect things that I didn't even know that was inside.
Yes, that's great. Let me clear up some things before I answer your question. Chief
Okay.
Bougie, you need to follow the link that's scrolling on the screen in order to get on StreamYard. Now, I've never used it, so Kiona might be able to answer that. Danica might be able to answer that. Somebody in the chat might be able to answer that. I don't know what
I
happens
just
with.
pressed the link. I pushed
Okay,
the link and it
so
just directed me to this screen, and it put me on there.
okay, so Chief Bougie, I'm sure you heard her. Just follow the link that Kiona put in the chat just above you, and it'll if you got your webcam and your audio, it'll bring you in. Okay. Now I want to answer um, Danica James, and I also want to answer Denise Preston at the same time. Denise Preston is asking, do you or why do you need to be initiated? And that is in the same vein of what Danica is asking me to really go into detail about.
Yes. Yes.
So she didn't say, why do I need initiation? She just said, how? And Denise is asking, well, why do I need initiation? And I'm going to explain that. In the perfect case scenario, I would have been born in Cameroon, Congo, Nigeria, in some village in Oshogbo, in some village in Oya, and you would be born into your lineage. Born into your lineage. Another way of saying that is you're born into a whole family. You know who your mom is. You know who your pop is. You know who your grandparents are, all four of them. And in best case scenarios, great grandparents and its family. But in our scenario, the African born in America, the Africans in the diaspora, the Africans not born into these systems, initiation is a requirement for us first just to realign our lineage.
Mm.
Now, Danica is asking about Ifa initiation, which is a part of what I try and cover, Danica, when I talk about the Orisha romance. The
Okay.
Orisha romance is a little bit shady when I say it, but it's a
Okay.
reference to us in America who want connection to Africa, who want connection to traditional religion, but all we
Hmm.
know is Orisha. And we have a
Right.
limited understanding of everything, often with no initiation in these, often with no initiation. So the initiation not only realigns lineage, and Danica,
Hmm.
Ifa, IFA is specific to
Okay.
Yoruba, the Yoruba people. If you look at just Nigeria, there are over 200 ethnic groups in Nigeria, over 200 languages spoken in Nigeria. English is the national language of Nigeria, by the way. But then you have all these ethnic groups.
Okay.
So why is it that we as African Americans have only latched on to Orisha, have only latched on to Yoruba? It would suggest that every enslaved African in the diaspora was stolen from Yoruba land, and that's not true. And that's why in my house, during the ancestral work and divination, lineage is everything. How much Yoruba are you? How much Igbo are you? How much Akan are you? How much Fan are you? And that's where we start getting into Fa, Ifa, Lukumi, Santeria, these various different paths. In a general context, it's all voodoo, Danica. All of it is voodoo.
Okay.
In a general terminology. If you ask
Hmm.
a Ghanaian what it is, particularly a Christian Ghanaian, they're going to say it's all voodoo. We don't know nothing about that. We go to church. It's all, so it's only
Right.
here on this side of the water that we argue about lineage, especially us in America and the Hispanic community. We love to get on social media and argue about that. What's right, what's wrong, what lineage is what. But I'm going to break it down. Lukumi is specific to Cuba. It is the Cuban evolution of Fa, Ifa. When I say Fa, that's voodoo. If we say Ifa in Fan, it will be Fa with no I. If we say it in Yoruba, it's Ifa. So often I will
Okay.
say Fa, Ifa, hyphenated. Fa, Ifa is how I usually pronounce it. So once you do your lineage and your background, and then you're sure about what family, what ethnic group you might be centered in, then my training shifts. And so we move away from Yoruba words, Alafia, Ashe, Aboru, Aboye, Aboshishe, and then we move into Fan words or Ewe words. When you start studying these ethnic groups, which is very hard to do in a
Hmm.
Google if you don't know the ethnic group specifically, it's
Hmm.
very hard to Google. E5, very easy to Google. Yoruba will pop up everywhere. Orisha will pop up everywhere. But much of
Hmm.
that information is authored by people on this side of the water. Americans, South Americans, Central Americans, Latino, Hispanic, etc. Very rarely is it from somebody in Oshogo, somebody in Oyo, because now you're introducing other languages that aren't as easily Googleable.
Hmm.
Yoruba now can be found in Google Translate without all the unique accent marks, but that's a new innovation. So we know more about Yoruba than we know any other ethnic group. So often when people say, well, I'm trying to figure out what my path is, what my, what lineage, we go into lineage and then we decide. Santeria is
Okay.
also sort of a off of Lukumi. I mean, you find that in Cuba, but you also find it a great deal in Puerto Rico and many of those communities.
Hmm.
And of course, lineage now is based in location. So if you're born in Cuba, you're going to do this a certain way. Travel to Cuba, you're going to do this a certain way. But if you go to Brazil, where it's called Candomblé, they might do it completely different. And it's still organic, it's still authentic. Just like we have our own path to food that is specific to Louisiana. The Haitian Revolution took place near the end of the 1700s. Slaves were coming to New Orleans from the beginning of the 1700s. So for at least 80 or 90 years, you had Africans coming straight from Benin, straight from Togo to Louisiana. So we have a unique, distinct way of doing voodoo here. So whether you're born in Cuba, Panama, Venezuela has Maria Leonza, another, I don't want to say appropriation, another synchronization, another, it's another word, another expansion of Yoruba or voodoo practice in the West. The Yoruba were a predominant people in Cuba. So many other ethnic groups were coming, but Yoruba became the predominant religious tradition that they acknowledged. But even here in Congo Square, we acknowledge more than just the Yoruba. And many people are surprised by that when they visit New Orleans, when they come here, that we have a Khan priest and we have Kwan priests and we have Yoruba priests here. We have people who travel back and forth to Brazil here. We have Sangomas here, and that's not new. That goes back to the 17, 18, 1900s. New Orleans has always been a portal city. So we've always had a diversity of ethnic groups. So I'm trying to grow us to a place where we get beyond, well, do I pick between voodoo and Ifa? Because that's really a misnomer. And you're really limiting your choices by thinking about it in that way.
Okay, I
For the
have a
person,
question.
go, please, come on.
Is there a group or something that I could possibly join or maybe visit with that can kind of help, I guess, help me transition into, or like
Um,
somebody that can teach me, or some like I need a teacher. I need a babalao. I need
your,
somebody to
listen,
teach me the ways and stuff.
listen,
Mhm.
your question is along the lines of Denise Preston.
Cuz I'm from here.
And
I'm
in
from New
that, do
Orleans
I know?
too, and I want to get involved.
A lot of groups are not going to share information. A lot of groups
Right,
are not going to
exactly.
open up
Right. And
to
this I
people who
know
are
cuz
not
I've tried
initiated.
to. Right. Mhm.
And initiation, Denise, protects the traditions. It's supposed
Mhm.
to protect the traditions. Initiation also protects people from hurting themselves with traditions.
Mhm.
Um, let's look at herbs, what we call airway in Yoruba. Herbs are a critical part to voodoo.
Mhm.
Plants and airway are a critical part to how we do this.
Mhm.
So misuse of that, abuse
Mhm.
of that, person can hurt themselves.
Yeah,
Too,
I
too
know.
much of the wrong root, too much of the wrong plant, you could kill someone. We
That's
discussed
true.
that in my last documentary, Buried Worlds with Don Wildman. It's discussed in that documentary. And we go to Haiti, and the Haitian Mambo is talking about poisons and
Mhm.
poisonous combinations of plants that must be
Yeah.
protected. Um, your kids, you wouldn't let your little kids play around in the kitchen and mix a bunch of stuff up in the pot and eat. It's really just that simple. So
Mhm.
there's a layer of protection, just like in the Masons, just like in the Shriners, just like really with any level of knowledge. If we look at our universities, they're gatekeepers to higher degrees of information. They're
Mhm.
gatekeepers to higher levels of knowledge. And so initiation is always been organic to the process, Denise Preston. Even if we were born in Nigeria, born in Ghana, you still would have gone into a coming of age initiation. All boys of the same age would be circumcised at the same time. All girls of a certain age would go through a ceremony at the same time. And so initiation has always been a party to ATR and indigenous tradition. It's a very Western thing to do my own thing. It's a very Western thing to be me, myself, and I. It's a very Western notion that what I do only affects me and doesn't affect the greater community. It has everything to do with village community consciousness. We say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise an initiate. It takes a village to operate, D'Amico, in these traditions. It can't be done in isolation. It can't be done by yourself. And the cultural context we have for the isolated healer or practitioner is the witch, is the old sage at the end of the dirty road in European legends and European stories. You don't hear that in South America. You don't hear that in Asia. You don't hear that in Africa. People living in complete isolation, separation, unless they've been banished, unless they've done something really terrible in the community, and then they're forced to be separate. So the idea of not being initiated is something that's a bit of a conflict for the Western mind. And going back to Danica James, it's even more of a conflict for us, I think, because of religion and church. And so we've now learned all of this crazy stuff about
Right.
religion and control and
Yeah.
abuse and somebody telling me what to do. Somebody, and so now the idea that we would go backwards in time culturally,
Right.
because to take on voodoo is to go backwards in time. To take on Ifa is to go backwards in time on one level, because you're now trying to operate from a more indigenous mindset. Now, it's also the future. Don't get me wrong. It's also the future. We have to go back to go forward. We have to. And when we look at divination systems, the complexity of divination systems, Fa is number one. Fa is number one. This 16 shell, 16 palm nut binary system that we use to communicate with spirit in these traditions is exactly what's powering your computer. Some of you mathematicians and scientists and people who took computer technology, that's what I'm talking about. So it's the most complex system in the world. So there's something to initiation, Denise Preston. It's something, mystery, if you will, that holds close in our bosom, protect in this system that keeps it alive. I'm trying to add you on to these, but my screen is frozen for some reason. So bear with me. She's going to come on screen. Okay, can you hear me now? Oh my goodness.
Yes, we can
Oh
hear you
my
now.
goodness. Okay, I can hear you now too. Everybody drop. Denise, you're still with me if you want to come on. Let's see.
Can you
There
hear
we go.
me?
Denise Preston.
Can you hear me?
Yes, beloved. Thank you. Thank you. Come on in. Come on in.
Thank you for all that information. It just seems like there's so many people out there that are priestess, and I I believe this is the path for me. My mother worked with herbs. There was definitely things that she did. My grandmother as well. And I look back at the things that they did, but they never taught me. And then I see, and through my research and what I've seen, I know exactly who and what they are. Um, but then trying to find a house or to work with someone, um, I've ran into people who I've provided money for, and then they've lost, like they've lost things to help me move on. And so I'm just at a at a roadblock.
Yes, I totally get that. And many of us are. And again, the process is further complicated for us, Africans born in America, because of white supremacy, slavery, our history, our past. I talked about the perfect case scenario, being born into West African lineage. Well, we could look at Cuba, for instance. During the time of enslavement, the Catholic Church made an agreement with Cuba to allow them to continue their acknowledgement of Yoruba as long as they converted to Catholicism. So that allowed Cuba to develop systems like Lukumi and Santeria in a very organized way that we here in the US were not given access to. You literally could be lynched, killed, mutilated for drumming, for coming together, for reading as a slave. There was a time we weren't even allowed to be exposed to the church. We weren't allowed to be exposed to the Bible. Another example would be Brazil. We know of the Maroons in Brazil that were able to escape and run into the mountains. We know about Maroonage in Jamaica and Nanny the Maroons and the ability to sort of escape geographically and build Maroon culture and tradition. But even in the study and acknowledgement of Maroons, many people don't know about Maroon culture in Louisiana. Many people don't know about Maroon culture in Mississippi, but we had Maroon culture here. And I mean enslaved Africans who worked, then left and went out into the swamps where they had their family and where the other escaped Maroons were and lived for some time and would then come back into the city and steal supplies, steal food necessities, etc. So that has everything to do with how we as Africans here in the US learned religion, learned culture, learned village mentality. So when it comes to now, I'm leaving the church, I'm leaving all of this foolishness behind me. What do I do? So some go out into that space of, non-religion. I'm just doing me. I'm just doing spirit, and I'm picking and tasting and choosing a little bit of here, there, and everywhere. But there's no fulfillment of self there. There's still components of ourselves that we're choosing to not look at or deny or ignore even. So I can't stress enough the importance of initiation. I get how it's being abused. I get how it's being misused. And particularly if you don't anticipate, if you don't know what to expect, if you don't know what initiation looks like. And heaven forbid you're going to Cuba, Haiti, and you can't speak the language. So now you're trying to learn a new system, learn a new culture, interpret a new language, and then they're speaking old world Yoruba, not conversational Yoruba, old world religious Yoruba. So there's just too many degrees of complexity that makes it that much harder for the Black American to get into this and to embrace this, to first weed through all of that other stuff. And, we understand white supremacy. There are people out there that want it to stay that way. Even our brothers and sisters, our cousins, brown and Latino, and, they have a whole economy around Lukumi. It's built into the system. And
it seems like it's just So where do you go? I mean, I live in San Diego, and I really thought this person was going to help me on my journey, and my journey has been. I've never been one to adhere to man-made religion. I've always questioned it, and I've always been the one who asked why. So it's never been my journey. This has definitely been it, but it's been a tough one to find someone authentic that can help me. I wish my mom and dad were around.
You know, it's hard. I hear you, and I embrace that. I do.
I
I
can't
accept
hear
that.
you. Okay.
It's hard for me to respond. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me
I
now?
can. Yes. Yeah.
Can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
It's
we
hard to respond to that question. I, I'm here. But another way of responding to that is you got to look at these people's footprint. I often ask, people who come to me, particularly after they've had a bad experience, how much work did you do? How much research did you do about the person who is bringing you into these traditions? How much of a footprint do there are very few practitioners who have my footprint. I'm on TV. I do documentaries. I'm well documented. And not just this year. I often ask, what was that person doing 5 years ago? What were they doing 10 years ago? What were they doing 20 years ago? I'm grateful that my mom comes on the show sometimes. I'm grateful that Wapani comes on the show sometimes. I'm grateful for my sister wife who's known me 30 years, who knows the validity of who I am. But when you're on the other side of a computer and you're in San Diego or New York City or Utah, and you're trying to figure out ATR and legitimate Yanifas and legitimate Babalaos, it's very difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
And again, the system, unfortunately, to some degree, is designed that way. Haiti is no different.
Right.
And Haiti does not value us as African Americans. They see themselves as a little bit more black than us, a little bit more authentic than us. Again, they will sell you initiation. They will take your money and provide you an initiation tour, is what I call it. Because how much, language, how much deity knowledge and information, how much ritual knowledge can you gain in a weekend or in 2 weeks or in a month, living in Haiti or living in Cuba? So I think for us as African Americans, we have to replace the quote unquote church system that we've all known, whether we've been connected to it or not, but we all know of it. We've got to replace it with this. We've got to replace it with something that's more indigenous. I love this coming together, having 6 people on screen at once. It almost feels like we in the temple. It almost feels like we in the building.
also too.
And this is what we
I want
need.
to say something. Also, to Denise, you don't have to be in the same city with your godparents.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to be in the same city with your godparents.
Okay. You just have to find one that you connect with, correct?
One that you connect with.
One. You're speaking to an authentic practitioner. You have Queen Mother here. You're in the presence of greatness. You're in presence of authenticity. This is not for show.
I truly feel that.
So what I'm saying, I'm explaining, not to be combative, but just to confirm, because this kind of give you reassurance, because you keep asking like, well, what do I do? And I'm telling you, you're in a safe place. You're in the place. You're where you need to be. Right? So you don't have to keep asking that question or like, what do I do? You're in the presence of an authentic practitioner.
Thank you.
Listen, thank you. Thank you. I'm with you, Denise. I'm with you. But in response to that, yes, email me. But in response to those who are listening, yes, you find a practitioner that you can trust, not just build a connection with. There are many popular faces on Instagram right now with 20, 30,000 followers who know nothing about Hoodoo, who know nothing about Voodoo. And as I suggested, if you start looking in the footprint, who are they? Who were they 10 years ago? Who were they 20 years ago? Where's their pathway to who they're presenting themselves to meet today? You'll find that you'll get much more authentic people along your journey. Now, the next step is, for me and for this house, Ancestral work and divination. Email me. That's exactly what I'm going to say. Ancestral divination. Establish a sacred space where you're going to acknowledge your ancestors in your home, in your environment, and then the study that comes along with that, the work that comes along with that. The third thing, if you will, it would be DNA, would be Ancestral.com, 23andMe, which also helps me to clarify for us, post Middle Passage, who we are and who we are descendants, and feed that system. I love Yoruba. Yoruba has done a lot, and I'm still very connected to many leaders in Yoruba. Oba Oba Tala to the U.S. Many leaders, Ella Baboon. But Voodoo called me, and when I did my DNA and realized how much Eve stood up in my blood, found out how much Fanti stood up in my blood, it resonated with those quote unquote voodoo oriented ethnic groups that we've been taught to associate with voodoo here in the West. As I said just a little while ago, it's all voodoo. But here in the West, somehow we think Yoruba Ifa is not voodoo and Benin and Togo is voodoo. And the truth is, you don't have Ifa without voodoo. You don't have voodoo without Ifa. Another way of looking at that is you don't have any of it without the Fa, without the system of divination, and you don't have any of it without the plants, the herbs, what we call Ewe in voodoo. We call it a whole bunch of other things if I'm speaking of Khan, Fan, Ewe. So I typically stick to Yoruba just so we're not all confused and all over the table. And I'm not trying to speak 10 languages all at one time. Yeah, so help me out, Denise. Am I answering your questions?
You are answering the questions. I'm learning a lot. I'm taking it all in and taking my notes. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiara, for your input and sharing the links in the email and the website addresses so people do know how to follow up. If you choose.
Queen Mother. I want to hear from Queen Mother because I know she got something to bless
Indeed.
us with that Yami presence.
Can you all hear her good from the chair?
I haven't heard her.
Oh, okay.
If I turn my phone on, you're gonna get a backdraft.
So what do I have to do? Mute this?
I guess.
What turn it on?
Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings.
Yeah,
Peace and blessings. Hello.
I'm just listening. This is my first time listening, but I had some thoughts on some of your comments. The one thing said, what she studied, how does she?
We can't hear her anymore. She was muted.
And it's always been my experience that when you look at
her anymore, she was muted. Queen Mother was muted.
The right one is you. You don't choose it. It chooses you. Because you'll keep going back to one particular one. To the one particular one that seems to interest you most. And to the queen who was talking about she didn't choose to be the person that walks into the room to be judged. I mean, my thoughts on that is then stop walking in the rooms where you know you're going to be judged at. Move on from that. And I can understand why she would, her first reaction would have been to wanting to slap the gentleman who called her a proud bitch just because he used the word bitch. But some of us don't know how to talk any differently. Then to use those words. For one thing, he has recognized that you are proud. And to be proud and someone recognizes that you're proud of who you are and what you are, that is a good thing. So the first word I would look at, when he called me a proud bitch, I would have been like,
show your work.
yes, I am.
am.
You know, I understand a lot of people are coming back to old ways, or going back in time, and that's a good thing. But it is a journey, and it's nothing to take lightly. So if you looking for bad, this is not it. I grew up, I didn't even know voodoo was voodoo. Until I started looking into it for myself. I found out my mother was born in 1900. Her mother was born a slave, but never actually was a slave. She was too young by the time freedom came.
Somebody to type in the chat is
Okay. And when I realized from my journey, I had been doing it all while I was growing up in my mama house. The horseshoe over the door, the salt over the shoulder, the ammonia, cinnamon, and sugar water to clean bed, the cinnamon burn on the stove to calm down the house. All of that I grew up doing. But it's something not to be taken lightly. And when trying to find someone, I have found the best research is to be in their presence with others. I used to be with the Nation of Islam. I used to hang with Rastafarians. I used to hang with Sunni Muslims. I used to hang with the York people. They are now Wabus, Nubians, and I just sit back and watch. Because from each of them, I learned something. And in doing that process, I learned something wrong with this, something not right with this. They almost got it right the way I feel it. You will know. You will know. And as the Divine Prince was saying about the DNA test, I was adopted. And the story was that I was the only child. I took a DNA test a few years ago and found out that I had 12 siblings by my mother. 12 siblings that I didn't know existed. And I'm well in my 50s. All these years, I had one sister live for me, and she was taking a DNA test. And that's how we met in DNA. I also found a cousin who was born in Africa, whose family knows the story. And he told me his great-great-great-grandmother, and apparently my great-great-great-great-grandmother were sisters in Africa, and one was stolen by slave catchers. So that had to be my great-great-grandmother and brought to what is called the United States. And that's how the bloodline got here. So I have actually traced my family back. It tells you in the DNA test what all the amounts of African, all the different regions that the people came through and everything. But that led me to know how our bloodline got in the United States. His great-great-great-great-grandmother stayed in Africa. Her sister was stolen and brought to the United States. And now me and him talk on the regular. Yes.
Which
doing DNA. I can't hear them though. That's the problem.
I'm gonna mute my mic.
DNA site did you go through? Which service? Now you're muted.
Okay. Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Hello?
Can you hear me? I first went to
I can hear you.
Ancestry.com. Ancestry.com was the most popular. It was the most affordable. It was happening in 2007. And then when 23andMe came along, I then also did 23andMe. I felt like I needed a backup. I had heard a lot of conspiracy theories and drama about the DNA. So I felt like if I had more, I would have something to compare it to. And that turned out to be a really good move. You don't get the same information on Ancestry as you do 23andMe.
I want to say something on that. My sister, who was looking for me since she was 15, she did Ancestry. I did 23andMe. We would have never found each other if it wasn't for her saying she was going to try one more time, because now she's going years old. And she said, I'm going to try one more time and take this 23andMe. And bam, that's where we met up. But if she would have never took the 23andMe and no other relative would have took the 23andMe, I would not have found Chicago. I have 10 sisters. I have 10 sisters and one brother by the same mother.
After living almost all her life as an only child.
Yes.
Thinking she was the only child on the way. Yeah. So it's a powerful story. It's actually on one of my YouTube videos. It's
And
a very
let me tell y'all a little secret. The Divine Prince had been telling me
to do that ancestral work and divination.
For years.
To do that ancestral work and divination.
And I fought him saying, I'm the only child. I'm the only child. I don't need to spend no money on no DNA test. And he kept saying, no, that's not what I'm feeling. You're not. And I fought him. And because someone actually purchased the test for me, is how I came to take it. And he was like, you would have found them a long time ago. I would have actually found them before my mother died if I would have listened to the Divine. If I would have just went and said, okay, Divine Prince, I'm doing it, I would have been able to actually meet my mother who died of cancer.
Yeah, I can't overstate the power of DNA. I can't overstate the power of ancestry. And not for just EFI and Voodoo and our personal usages, but it transforms whole families. My mother wasn't interested in the beginning in the DNA, and my mother didn't really know her father at all, didn't really have any kind of real relationship with her father. So her interest in the DNA was very limited until I got those results. And now today, my mom is a proud Nigerian queen, proud to be, Black and African. And my mother introduced Black consciousness to me in the 1960s before, it was a popular thing to do. My mom is a retired school teacher, big Afro wearing school teacher. And my mom introduced Black history and Black studies into the school system at a time when it was not popular, in a time when it was not valued. So I'm grateful for that upbringing in terms of helping me find my path, find my journey. Even while I was in the sanctified churches, Denise, I still felt that call for spirit. I knew what I was seeing was voodoo. I just didn't have the words for it. And as Tony suggested, we do a lot of things now in your practice, in your ritual, in your home, that after you start doing the study, you find out that it's real voodoo. It's really ethnic to what has been done for centuries. I don't think we can lose it in our blood. That's why I've never embraced the idea that we lost our gods. You know, Erykah Badu has a song about it. They don't know their language. They don't know their gods. They take what they're given, even though it seems odd. And on the surface, relatively speaking, yes, for the sake of our lives, we have to embrace church when they forced it
Had
on
no
us.
other
We have to
choice.
embrace that way. That's right. But just beneath the surface, the voodoo was always there. You turn that volume down on that sanctified service, you looking at voodoo. Here, faith healing, casting out of demons and jinn spells. You're seeing voodoo, you know, in work. We've just been adulterated by language and by meaning.
And let me tell y'all something. My mama went to church regularly, sang the hymns and everything, was an usher in the church. When she got home, she put that red brick dirt on her steps. So we kept it. We just stopped telling our children what it was. We passed it on. You do some things in your house that people call superstition. No, it's voodoo.
Yes.
It's voodoo.
Yes.
They're not
Yes.
talking about it to us as times changed and people got a real negative attitude toward the voodoo. I know that's how it was in New Orleans. At one time, you whispered Marie Laveau name. She was a threat. She was a threat to little children if you were bad. Then 20 years later, they singing her name from the mountaintops. So everybody's hearing about her now. Mm-hmm. But when I was growing up, the other people, not my mama, the other people was like, ooh, the voodoo queen, gonna get you, you keep being bad. Marie Laveau. It was something to be feared.
Like the boogeyman.
Like the boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
So we stopped talking about it, but we continue to do the works of it. And our children, you know how your mama cleans her house, you clean your house. Certain things your mama did growing up, you still do in your house today.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's how we
collecting the rainwater.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I never understood
Deja,
it. My
come
mom
on in.
Hey, my great grandma's still alive, and I remember her
Hold
telling
on, Deja. Hold on. Deja. I'm sorry. Let Denise get her point out, and then go to Deja and Lady Phoenix.
Thank you.
Go ahead and finish, Denise.
My mother would the first full moon, if it rained, she would catch the water and she would always wash my hair with it. And I never really understood what she was doing. She said it would make my hair softer. But now I understand that there was something behind that. But my mom did a lot of the things that you said. She we had the red I called it red dirt that was on my doorstep. She always burned bay leaves certain times of the day or throughout the year. There was always this things that my mother did, and she just said that it was for good luck, or she would say, "Don't worry about it." But there was always little things that my mother always did, and now after researching and buying books and reading, I understand what she was doing now.
Your mama did what?
Her mama burnt her hair.
Oh,
Ask her.
Your mama burnt your hair. If your mama combed your hair and picked that hair out of the comb, did she burn it?
Yes.
Denise.
Yeah. Before we would take a trip back to Texas.
We know.
Yeah.
Come on in, Deja. Greetings, beloved. Come on in, Lady Phoenix. Welcome. Contribute today. Thank you for being present.
hello, good morning.
I'm here. Hi.
Okay, who's speaking? Who's that? Lady Phoenix? Deja, who's
Yes,
speaking? Come on
We
in.
were talking at
yes,
the
lady.
same time.
I think we're both speaking at the same time.
Okay, Deja, you go first. Come on, Deja.
Okay, well, I found hoodoo through my dreams, and I always connected hoodoo to a con. So it's interesting hearing you talk about this. And what you guys were saying about
Hmm.
unspoken truths. My great grandma is still alive, and she always talked about how every morning her mom would smoke a cigar and speak a language, but she said she never taught her that language. So I thought that was interesting. But while learning hoodoo, I always connected it to a con. So I'm wondering, is it practical to get like Ori cleansings or fa divinations if you might be connected to another practice?
Yeah, now see, there you go. I appreciate that, Deja. That there you go. Because as I grew in these traditions, got initiated, got hand to Ifa, got more than one hand. Okay, because you can't really do a whole lot with just one hand. And received titles. Spirit put it on my heart. Are you really about to spend that much more money to travel to this country, that location, when you might not be Yoruba at all, or you might be limited in Yoruba? And that's where he taught me, meaning God, the goddess, taught me this new system of ancestral work and divination, which is what I apply in my house, so that we can find out exactly what you find out is who your ancestors are. Now, we call it Fa, the Yoruba call it Ifa, the Akan have a name, the Igbo have a name for it, but it's the same system of divination. So I would then seek out a mentor in the Akan. If you've clarified, with DNA that you indeed have Akan blood, and then I would learn the system from an Akan perspective. I said early in the show, Deja, that many of us know the Yoruba because it's common, it's popular, it's easy to find, it's easy to Google. You just don't find a con popping up in the Google search very often unless you look for it. You don't find font showing up in your search engine unless you look for it and you knew the words to use. So if you were my godchild, yes, we would be looking at the Yoruba, we'd be looking at the hoodoo and the voodoo and the conjure, but we would be learning a con, and I would be teaching you the abosom. They're not Orisha in a con, they're abosom. And then we will be looking at the abosom and how the abosom manifests. But from a teaching perspective, it's a very similar system. But don't let anybody tell you, oh, Haitian voodoo ain't voodoo. Don't let anybody tell you Louisiana voodoo ain't voodoo. Don't let anybody tell you Ifan. It's all voodoo, but it's specific to lineage, location, initiation. And we know that these groups, the Yoruba, the Fon, the Ebe, the Akan, also moved around. So the Akan are part of my bloodline, the Fanti. The Fanti, the Akan are part of a much larger ethnic group out of Ghana that most of us associate, and that's oh God, I'm drawing a blank. Who's the biggest ethnic group that we know coming out? Oh wow! Listen, I'm drawing a blank. I'm having a brain
Coming
freeze.
from
Let
where?
me Google it real quick. From Ghana.
Asante.
The yes, thank you. The Ashanti. Thank you. The Ashanti. So the Fanti and the Akan are part of the Ashanti family group. Okay, so we just lost you, Blog Talk Radio. So just as I was saying earlier, just like with Yoruba, you have the Yoruba that we know in Louisiana. You have the Yoruba that they know in Cuba. You have the Yoruba that they know in Brazil. So it's the same thing now with Ashanti. So wherever the ethnic groups travel, they took the practice that they knew with him. So when we look at this side of the water, we all meet up here. We all came together here. And so as Queen Mother said, not only did some of the word and language uses get lost, some of it just got tucked away because everyone is saying something else. So we find that common language. And in this case, it eventually became Creolized French and then English. If we look at Southeastern Africa, we're going to look at a lot of Swahili. But Swahili covers many countries and many ethnic groups. Kenya, South Africa, you know, parts of Zimbabwe. So we've got to change how we look at what path should I be going into? What lineage should I be initiating into? And go for a more indigenous mindset. Just start with trying to be more indigenous, and then learning about your people, learning about different cultures. As Queen Mother said, follow your heart, follow your spirit. You know, back in the day when y'all loved me on Yahoo 360, and the early days of Facebook and all the posts that Queen Mother is still doing, and I posted history and a lot of that kind of stuff. I would wake up every day and choose an ethnic group. Every day I would choose a different ethnic group, and I'd research their religion, or I'd research something specific to their religion that we connected to, and then I would post it. Joy. Let me check. Oh yeah, I know. I posted that when we were talking about it earlier. Yeah, it's been up there for a minute. Lady Phoenix, come on in. You have a question or comment? Are y'all with me? I'm not hearing anybody right now.
Yes, we're here. I think Lady Phoenix hung up.
Okay, yeah, because she's, oh, wait a minute. I have to re-add her to the screen. Okay, there she is. Greetings, beloved.
Hi,
Lady Phoenix,
greetings.
come on in.
I'm here, but it's muted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, hi.
Can you hear me? Because I'm
No,
muted.
you're fine. Lady Phoenix, I can hear you. Lady Phoenix, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, did you have a question or a comment?
First I want to say Aibobo to everyone. Greetings. I'm glad to be here. Second, I just wanted to comment on the comment about being in church and moving forward into an African spirituality. Growing up in New Orleans, I definitely was raised in church. I was raised with, you know, Pentecostal, you know, the whole laying on hands, speaking in tongues. And I found that as I wanted to study and I was moving forward, I have babies. That's what you hear. As I was moving forward in my studies, I found that it was very beneficial for me to latch on to my African roots, especially myself as a Creole woman. So I just wanted to agree with everything that you were saying about, you know, hooking on to our roots and getting our DNA and moving forward into being who we are and practicing our traditions. So I just wanted to just comment on that because that is very important so that we can stand strong together as a culture with each other, regardless of where we are. So, yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate you and your children. And I appreciate you for seeing the vision, because that is indeed my vision. All these empty churches, all these churches that have been mortgaged off, you know, been sold away, you know, and of course we have this large population of us that are moving away from that. But then you have the younger generation that don't know anything about that and certainly don't want to have any parts of it that are now looking. And there are many people out there to catch their attention, you know, many groups out there to pull at your attention. But I think at the end of the day, we've tried everything, in my opinion. In my half a century or more in life, we've tried everything except us. We've tried everything except us. And so I would love to see those empty buildings become ancestral centers, you know, because we all have ancestors. We ain't got to argue over a Khan in Europe, but we all got ancestors. and then provide a space where there can be mentors, leaders, teachers, as Denise was asking, that can walk us into this process. I'm doing that now. I invite you all to be a part of that. I welcome you all to be a part of that. I invite you to be a part of that. Just don't show up at the door without a mask, unannounced. That's all I'm asking. At least give me an email. At least give me a heads up. Give us an opportunity to plan, your visit, your arrival. We have a community garden, not even a half a block away. Would just blow your mind away. My backyard would blow many of your minds away, in terms of plants, herbs, airway, what's necessary to operate in these traditions. So it is being done. Hear me. It is being done. And let me say more. It's being done in New York. It's being done in Philadelphia. It's being done in Chicago. It is being done in California. But it's hard to find. Those who are typically doing it seriously are not trying to sell it, not trying to broadcast it, not trying to advertise it. We don't proselytize voodoo. We don't proselytize Ifa the way Christians, knock on your door and offer you Jesus. We don't do that. So we allow spirit to call you to us. We allow spirit to help you to find us. We allow spirit to allow us to be present, so that when you're ready, I can take you in. I have room for you. I have resources for you. And I appreciate my community keeping us alive. I wouldn't be here without the community. I wouldn't be here without those of you who are actively, seriously committed to this. And I'm grateful for that. I give praise to the ancestors, and I give praise to the Most High for that. But I give what I can. Some people say I give more than I should, often in this space. I don't eat, I don't sleep. I leave very little room, for myself sometimes, which is not good in terms of taking care of the physical temple. But for me, Denise and Deja and Lady Phoenix and Kiona and Queen Mother Martinez, this is worth giving my life for. I see a vision where our children and our grandchildren don't know church, don't know anything about the Jesus myth, and
I
have
totally agree.
and have a full understanding of who we are, and not just one ethnic group. Embrace your ethnic group, but again, I embrace the Akan, I embrace the Fan, I embrace the Ebe, I embrace the Hausa. I embrace those Islamicized ethnic groups, but I need you to understand that they have voodoo. Understand, they have voodoo. Islam has voodoo. It's some of us who are deep in Islam who understand that. Islam has voodoo, y'all. You ought to see in the surface religions, you ought to see what they sell to the masses. And when you look at any of these groups, there's a hierarchy of people who sit at the higher echelons of these groups who have this knowledge that we can all say is voodoo, that we can all relate to somewhere. Carmen is in the chat. Hey, Carmen.
Carmen is in the chat.
Yes, Carmen is my administrator, y'all. She's my administrator here on the ground. When you come here in the coming weeks, in the coming months, it's going to be Carmen Santiago who's going to meet you at the door. Carmen is Puerto Ricano, and she's Merenga. Okay. And she's African and Hispanic, and she brings Espiritismo. Benedicciones, beloved, you are in the chat. I was wondering, I didn't know Carmen was in the chat until just now. Hey, hola, beloved, hola. Yes, so listen, I'm not in isolation, y'all. You can't operate in this in isolation. You just can't. And if someone's telling you they're a qualified practitioner and they ain't got no big mamas, big papas, priests, priestess, assistants, something ain't right. You can't do this by yourself. This will kill you. I get by on 3 to 4 hours of sleep. You can't do this by yourself. You can't. So you are all my family, Denise and Deja and Kiona. I just can't wait for us to come together and be in the same space. You know, and come to California. I want some of you all to arrange events and ceremonies where you are. And then we'll come to San Diego and turn it out. And then we'll go to Philly and turn it out, you know, and make our presence known. We are not alone, y'all. We are not. It might feel that way sometimes. We are not alone. There are many of us who are walking this path. And yes, some are quiet, some are in their spaces, you know, but we're not alone. We're not alone. Give me your questions, your comments, your quests. I'm going to give it about 5 more minutes, y'all, and then I'm going to move forward. I have not eaten today. I've had a couple of teaspoons of peanut butter and a handful of grapes, not grapes, raisins, but I haven't really eaten today. So I'm going to move forward. Yeah, I need Carmen. I need Carmen Santiago to cook me some beef quesadilla.
We're gonna need you to eat. But Keisha Smith has a question.
Come on, Keisha Smith. Somebody, I need you to turn your volume down because I'm hearing me.
Keisha Smith has a question.
Oh, where's the question?
She wanted to know, based off of us.
I can't hear you, Kiona.
She wanted to know, based off of us.
I can't hear you, Kiona.
She wanted to know how many people are actually practicing hoodoo in their family and keeping up with the family traditions.
Okay. In all honesty, Keisha, I can't give you a number. The census count Catholics, Christians, Islam, but Voodoo is still not really counting. If I had to take a guesstimation, I would say it's a larger number than you know. I would say at least 5% of people who practice sanctified traditions and religions. Many of the Black churches, Black Baptist churches, where you might see a St. Jude statue or a St. Peter statue, you can suspect that there's hoodoo afoot. If you go into a Black church and you see iconography, typically there's hoodoo there beneath that. A lot of the more modern churches don't have a lot of that. They might have a cross, and that's typically about it. But if you're seeing statuary, you might have some voodoo there. If you're hearing words like watch service, Terry service, it's some hoodoo there. All night services, it's some hoodoo there. And so you're going to find that in a lot of the Black spiritualist churches. You're going to find that in the apostolic and the Pentecostal churches. You're going to find that at the storefront churches. But I also find that once these churches get big, once these churches grow, that falls back. That becomes more private. They clean up, they act. Because now they're wearing suits and ties and driving fine cars, and, you know, they don't want to admit that that's at work. When we look at Catholicism, and I'm taking a big risk in with the power that the Catholic Church has in New Orleans, but I'm going to say at least 5%, at least 5% in New Orleans and in the Western world who are practicing Catholicism got some voodoo going on behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, I know, because I grew up Catholic.
Because it's easy, because you already burning candles, so it's easy to hide.
The saints match the Orisha.
The saints match the Orisha.
Like Saint Michael, Shango. They match them. That's how come I grew up not knowing my mama was doing voodoo, because my daddy was Catholic. When I grew up in the Catholic
They
church,
write petitions.
Write petitions?
Yes.
Yes. So Keisha, it's a large number. It's a large number. And I dare say, Keisha, when you look at the prosperity ministries, Creflo Dollar, Fred Price, T.D. Jakes, the church that I formerly came out of, Greater Scripture Church in D.C., these Bishop Benson, these huge mega churches, it's voodoo there. It's voodoo there. And it's hidden and it's covered.
Wow.
Because even if it's in that church, everybody in the church don't know it.
Yeah.
It's only a certain group in the church that knows it. A certain people who are friendly with. You know, you need to pay attention to these big dinners at the church with these prosperity men. We go into the seafood house. We go into the steak house, you know, and they build these relationships that expand beyond those four walls. And that's often where this higher information is being shared, is being leaked. Greetings, neophyte Bokur, beloved. Come on in. Come on in.
Greetings, everybody. Well, we got a big crowd today. I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make this brief. I know you gotta go ahead and get to filling that belly and everything. You can't go out here hungry. You've been out here. You've been on this channel for a minute today.
Yeah, it's what I do.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just hope that you all appreciate it enough to support me, to send donations, to do your work, your ancestral work in divination. I just pray for support. That's all I pray for. I'm not Miss Cleo. Call me now. I'm not Tammy Faye Baker, Jim Baker. I'm not about to cry and beg for money. That's not what I'm here for. I'm indeed here for exactly what you see. The truth, dissemination of information, and the dissemination of ancestral honor and worship. I swear on ancestors. I swear on ancestors. If y'all are getting that, then we should get what we need. We should have what we need to move forward. If y'all are getting it, then I don't have to ask. I don't have to beg. I don't have to plead. I don't have to scam and fraud, and I don't have to do all of that.
Yeah, my mind is completely filled. I got a whole list of things I'm about to go and research once I get settled in today. But I wanted to, chime in a little bit before you go. All the Catholic churches, and I don't want to tread on anybody's toes or anything. A lot of these churches do actually have a lot of involvement in hoodoo. I travel around and I get to see some of these missions that are still erected that people go to for their ceremonies, and they have great big murals, especially in California. Great big murals of the saints painted on the side, where people are doing their community service by doing something creative. So they paint these murals on the side of their missions that are still erected, old missions. We have a lot of connections with these spiritualities, these spiritual practices, but we keep forgetting their connection in history. We got to do our chronology. We got to do our research in our logistics. We got to include those things. Logistically, how were we being transported? And who was doing the transporting? There's a lot of pirates involved with our slave trade. And they didn't always take you from West Africa. They took you from other places. You get that great Horn of Africa. Once you get around that, you got a lot of islands that were actually founded by buccaneers and pirates, where African people had already colonized, and because of their Catholic faith, where they had to actually be Catholic to do transactions with these larger East India trading corporations and things of that nature, you get a lot of what would you would say, bootleg slaves being introduced to the slave trade. So you're going to get a lot of this intermixing with, I think one of my favorites is Mayotte. Mayotte is an island in between Madagascar and Africa. It was founded by a pirate couple. There's two men that actually founded the first marriage between two men. They wanted to marry their first companies together. And it's an island. It's a tourist destination now, but it's called Mayotte. It's in between Madagascar and Africa, near Ethiopia. Coming all the way back around, you drink your Captain Morgan. Captain Morgan was also the lieutenant mayor of Jamaica. right? There's another buccaneer pirate, and they're involved in the slave trade, but only underneath the surface, right? So you really got to dig into it. It never ends. You got to keep digging, do your ancestry work, but include the bootlegging and the pirating to go along with it. These slave ships weren't called slave ships; they were called military vessels, military names. So when you come to that brick wall in your family line, this is one of the reasons why you're coming to a brick wall where you can't figure out where your family came through, is because you're still looking for the name of a slave ship, but then that's not what they were called. So
that's right.
You got to get past that part.
Yeah, wording is everything in terms of doing your research. Some of us think that, we quick on the Google search, you quick on the Bing, but if you don't know the right word, and I'm not talking about foreign words, I'm talking about if you don't even use English words in the correct order or the correct combinations, you don't get access to some of this information. You don't readily find some of this information. Queen Mother and I spend hours doing research. Some of you are in our Black in New Orleans group.
Black New Orleans,
Then and now on Facebook. And
Still I Rise, I do that one.
And
I have my own. But I did a post recently on Captain Morgan being a slave trading pirate buccaneer, stealing slaves and going to sell them somewhere else. So he was low down dirty. I can't stand that drink.
Oh yes, yeah, indeed. I mean that's not the only one. I mean, you can go down your liquor cabinet and just do research on just some of the pirates that are big name brand companies, and you can tread a lot of water just researching some of those simple things. Make sure that you're paying attention to your wordplay. Like I said, chronology, your timeline. War history is another way of being able to figure out, well, what pirate was involved in mercenaries, transporting mercenaries. This is where you get your headless horseman myth from, where you have the Scottish and whatnot, and how the Scottish actually mirror the voodoo practices in our culture. It is very strange because they actually were some of the first people that turned against the French and the British during the Haitian Revolution. They were considered to be black after that war. So these Scottish people that were actually over in Haiti were deemed or renamed black. So when they came over to America, then you get these Frasers, these Scottish that were Frasers that were turned to can be considered black. You're going to find all of them pretty much in California. Well, a large majority of them in California, all the way into Kentucky, but that's neither here nor there. Because then we're going to get into a whole nother argument about Oklahoma and things of that nature.
Lola Noble. We are presented the idea that Freemasonry is Scottish, but
yes,
Freemasonry comes from the Middle East. Freemasonry goes all the way back to the Middle East, goes all the way back to Egypt. And if you look at their symbolism, Scottish Rite and the various groups, just look at the crown, look at the symbolism. It's all Middle Eastern and East African. So we're sort of told that it's Scottish. It's presented to us as being Scottish. But Freemasonry is not Scottish.
Exactly. I mean, it's not. I mean, even the Scottish don't even necessarily know their full history either. I mean, they've got this mystery called the Cheddar Man, which is the black people that were found, that were their genetic ancestor, which was from the Middle East. I still don't understand exactly that whole Middle East term. Like, Middle East of what? What does that even mean? It's Africa. It's Africa still. Like, I don't. Let's not call it that.
Yes, and it's changed over the centuries, depending on power, depending on governments, depending on politics. what we call it has changed. Even the idea of the Arabs, have changed. We now see the Arabs as being this really Islamicized culture, and we completely forget about Latin, and the, what do they call themselves? No. They say, I'm not Arab, I'm
Hindu.
It's another terminology. No, not Indian. That's not the word.
Arab.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's going to come to me right after I push in the show. It's going to come to me. When we think about the time period from when Aladdin and the flying carpets and sort of that magical demonstration of that culture, we call them by another name. And that's what's escaping me right now.
Arabia. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I found that story, Aladdin and the flying carpet and whatnot. Found that technically there's a lot of pieces in the Bible with King David and King Solomon actually having a flying carpet, amongst other things. Still trying to connect the dots on that.
Mm-hmm.
Where you get this idea in Islam about jinn, but you also in India or Arabia, you have the story of the genie, which is essentially the jinn. It's history. It's history. A lot of dots to be connected.
Yes, indeed. Well, I'm going to move forward. I think I said that 15 minutes ago. We're all grateful for the Queen Mother. So if you have something you want to say.
Peace and blessings. Y'all take care. Stay safe.
She'll be back more regularly.
I'll be back more regularly.
Definitely an honor.
All is a blessing.
Thank you all. Thank you all. I appreciate you. Please stay in touch. Love you, Denise. Love you, Adeja, Neophyte Bokur, Antonia Martinez, my Queen Mother, Sean Wynn. Greetings, Sean Wynn. Lola Noble, please come back to a future show. Come back tomorrow and be more present with us. We certainly appreciate you and your comments. The Goddess Initiative, thank you so much for coming through. And we look forward to connecting with you all again. Moving forward, all is truly and indeed a blessing. Asheo. Now, this is the part that gets me.
What? How to log out?
No, you're in the show, but then it don't end. Come on, what's happening here? I've had this happen before where it happened yesterday. I ended the show and came back 20 minutes later, and Neophyte Bokua and a couple other people was in danger, I think, was holding down the show.